Did you just roll your eyes at me, nurse? The voice cut through the ICU like a blade. Monitors beeped in steady rhythm. Ventilator hiss. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The young nurse didn't answer right away. She adjusted the four-line with steady fingers, eyes on the drip chamber. I asked you a question. Boots scraped against tile. The Navy SEAL lieutenant stepped closer to her station, still in desert camis, sleeves tight around forearms lined with old scars. His trident glinted under the lights. Two junior corpsmen froze behind him. She kept her posture straight. No, sir. His jaw flexed. Because from where I'm standing, it looked like attitude. A patient groaned behind the curtain. The nurse checked the heart monitor, calm. Sir, your teammate's blood pressure is unstable. I need quiet. The lieutenant gave a short, humorless laugh. You need quiet. He stepped into her space now. Close enough that the scent of jet fuel and sweat lingered in the air. That man in that bed dragged me out of a kill zone, he said, voice low but carrying. You will not tell me what I need. Silence rippled across the unit. She didn't move back. With respect, sir, she said evenly, you're disrupting critical care. A sharp inhale from one of the corpsmen. The lieutenant's expression hardened. You think that badge makes you untouchable? He pointed at her name tape like it offended him. You're a brand new nurse. Probably fresh out of training. You don't get to command this room. Her fingers tightened slightly around the chart. I am not commanding, she replied. I'm treating. He leaned closer, voice rising just enough for everyone to hear. You will address me properly. You will step aside. And you will remember exactly who outranks who in this building. The monitor alarm spiked. She didn't flinch. But the room had shifted. And everyone felt it. The alarm shrilled once more before the nurse silenced it with a precise tap. Pressure's dropping, she said, already reaching for the infusion pump. I need space. The lieutenant didn't move. This wasn't some civilian hospital. The insignia on the wall made that clear. United States Navy Medicine. The ICU wing reserved for combat transfers. Men flown in straight from theater. Sand still in their boots. Dust still in their lungs. And Lieutenant Aaron Cole, Naval Special Warfare, looked like he hadn't left the battlefield at all. His desert camouflage was faded from sun and grit. His trident sat above a stack of ribbons. Not decorative. Earned. The kind that didn't get explained in polite company. Behind him stood two younger SEALs, silent, watching. Their posture was rigid. Protective. Territorial. The nurse adjusted the vasopressor drip without asking permission. Cole noticed. You're increasing the dose, he said sharply. Yes, sir. Who authorized that? She didn't look up. The patient's map is 62 and falling. Protocol authorizes it. Protocol. The word landed flat. Cole folded his arms. You don't know him. No, sir. You don't know what he can tolerate. She checked the monitor again. The heart rhythm stabilized by a fraction. I know what his chart says, she replied. Her name tape read, L. Bennett. No rank visible on her scrubs. Just calm hands. Controlled breathing. No wasted movement. Cole studied her harder now. Young. Mid-20s maybe. Hair pulled tight into a regulation bun. No visible shake in her grip. But he saw what he assumed was inexperience. The clean edges. The absence of field wear. No salt in the posture. He'd seen combat medics work under fire. He'd watched corpsmen pack wounds in darkness, with bullets snapping overhead. This wasn't that. This was fluorescent light and controlled temperature. You ever been deployed, Nurse Bennett? He asked. She kept her tone neutral. That isn't relevant to his oxygen saturation, sir. One of the junior SEALs shifted his weight. Cole's voice cooled. Everything is relevant when it's my operator in that bed. The man behind the curtain, Chief Ramirez, had been airlifted from an overseas operation less than 12 hours earlier. Classified mission. Improvised explosion. Internal bleeding. Emergency surgery at a forward surgical unit before transport stateside. Cole had been there when Ramirez went down. He'd seen the blast wave. He'd felt the heat. And now he was standing under hospital lights, being told to be quiet. The ICU doors opened briefly as a Navy commander in medical whites stepped inside, scanning the room. He caught the tension instantly. What's happening? The commander asked. Nothing, sir, Cole answered before Bennett could speak. Bennett didn't contradict him. The commander's gaze lingered a moment longer on the lieutenant, then on the nurse adjusting the pump with clinical precision. Keep it professional, the commander said calmly. This is a critical care unit. Yes, sir, Cole replied. The doors closed again. The hierarchy was visible in every movement. Rank on collars. Authority in tone. Years of service written into posture alone. But in this room, something unspoken pressed against that order. Cole stepped back half a pace, though it was more concession than retreat. Bennett moved to the ventilator, checking settings. You increased PEEP, Cole observed. Yes, sir. Without consulting anyone. Respiratory signed off during handoff. She pointed briefly to the chart clipped at the end of the bed. Notes initialed. Times logged. Everything documented. Cole followed her gesture but didn't step closer. He hated feeling out of control. On deployment, control meant survival. You assessed. You acted. You commanded. Hesitation got men killed. Here, control belonged to someone else. The monitors hummed steadily now. Chief Ramirez's vitals were stabilizing. Slowly. Cole's jaw unclenched a fraction. You talk like you've done this before, he said, voice lower now. I have, Bennett replied. How long you been in uniform? Long enough, sir. That answer didn't satisfy him. He glanced at her shoulders again. No visible insignia. No warfare device. Just a nurse. He had commanded men in firefights. Led operations across continents. Made decisions that shaped outcomes no one would ever publicly acknowledge. And she was telling him to lower his voice. You understand, Cole said quietly, that if something goes wrong, it won't be your team burying him. Bennett paused. Only for a second. Then she resumed checking the arterial line. If something goes wrong, she answered evenly, it will be because his injuries were severe. Not because the room was quiet. The words were measured. Not defiant. Not apologetic. Just factual. One of the SEALs behind Cole exhaled slowly. Cole looked at Ramirez through the glass partition. Tubes. Lines. Machines doing the work his body couldn't. He felt useless. That was the part no one trained you for. He turned back to Bennett. You think I'm in your way, he said. I think you're under stress, she replied. That caught him. Her eyes finally met his. Steady. Unintimidated. Not disrespectful. Just observant. A corpsman approached hesitantly. Lieutenant, Exos asking for you downstairs. Cole didn't move. His gaze stayed on Bennett. You better be as competent as you sound, he said quietly. I am, sir. No edge. No ego. Just certainty. Another alarm flickered briefly, then normalized. The ICU returned to its steady rhythm. Cole finally stepped back from the bedside, though his presence still filled the room. He wasn't done. And neither was this. Cole's footsteps echoed down the sterile hallway, boots striking tile like gunshots. Bennett followed behind, hands clasped around a clipboard, posture rigid but controlled. They entered the central command area, a room bustling with corpsmen, medics, and junior officers. Whiteboards tracked patient status. Monitors lined the walls. The hum of machines blended with hushed conversations. Everyone froze for a fraction when Cole's presence cut across the room. Everyone, listen up, Cole barked, voice sharper than usual. We've got a priority case. Move aside if you're not assigned. A few medics shuffled nervously. Bennett moved silently behind him, clipboard tight in hand. Cole's eyes flicked to her. You, he snapped. Why aren't you coordinating this team? Step up. Bennett's grip didn't tighten. She tilted her head slightly, scanning the charts before answering. I'm following protocol, sir. You're directing movement. A laugh came from one of the younger SEALs, barely contained. She's supposed to tell us what to do. Cole's jaw tightened. Don't question me. Bennett didn't flinch. She handed a clipboard to a corpsman. Check the ventilator settings. Confirm 4 rates. Then report back. Watch her, Cole muttered to the SEALs beside him. She's new, thinks she knows it all. They exchanged glances. One moved to intercept a corpsman attempting to follow Bennett's instructions. Cole leaned closer, voice low but audible. You think rules protect you. You think those charts save you. Bennett continued moving, checking each station with calm efficiency. She didn't argue. She didn't pause. The room watched, and tension rippled. Cole raised his voice suddenly, louder than necessary. You. Step aside. You're in my way. I'm in charge here. Some medics flinched. Others looked away. Bennett's eyes flicked briefly to the wall-mounted clock. Seconds ticked past. She repositioned a tube without hesitation. Sir, the patient's oxygen saturation is dropping. Immediate action is required. Cole snapped. I said step aside. Do you know who you're speaking to? Yes, sir, Bennett said evenly, her tone neutral but precise. He stepped in front of her, blocking access to the bedside monitor. The tension in the room thickened. Corpsmen exchanged uncomfortable looks. Even the SEALs behind him paused. Your badge means nothing here, Cole hissed. You're just a nurse. You don't outrank me. You don't know what it's like in the field. You, sir, Bennett interrupted, voice steady. The patient needs intervention. Your rank won't stabilize his vitals. The words hit harder than Cole expected. His hand twitched, almost reflexively. He inhaled through his nose. Control, something he'd always commanded with ease, felt elusive here. Do it your way, he snapped. I want to see how fast you fail. Bennett moved. Slowly, deliberately, as if showing him the consequences of hesitation. Each line she checked, each adjustment she made, was precise. The monitors responded. The room exhaled collectively, though quietly. One of the SEALs muttered, "She's actually saving him." Cole's face went pale, a flash of something unacknowledged in his gaze. Anger. Pride. Recognition. The lieutenant's authority, once absolute, now felt brittle. Not broken, but challenged in a way that made the room lean toward Bennett without anyone needing to say it. Cole's voice rose again, this time sharper, louder, more performative. Everyone see this. You watch her act like she's in charge. You take notes. This is how inexperienced medics get in over their heads. Bennett kept working, but a subtle, deliberate patience appeared in her movements. Every adjustment, every command to corpsmen was visible, measured. A junior officer stepped forward nervously. Sir, should we follow her orders? Cole's lips pressed tight. He barked again, louder. No. Follow me. Step back. But his own team hesitated, eyes darting between Bennett and Cole. Bennett glanced at them briefly, then back to the patient. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She executed. The Central Command officer entered, catching the tail end of the confrontation. Lieutenant Cole, he said, tone firm, we need calm. This patient's condition is critical. Authority is important, but execution is priority. Cole straightened abruptly, posture rigid. Understood, sir. Bennett didn't react. The officer's gaze lingered on her. A quiet acknowledgement, nothing spoken. Cole turned back to Bennett. The moment was brief but sharp. He realized that his usual tactics, intimidation, presence, the weight of rank, were ineffective here. She didn't cower. She didn't seek validation. She acted. The hum of the machines became the background once more. Monitors, beeps, and the hiss of ventilators replaced human tension. Cole's hand hovered near the trident at his chest, not in command, but in reflex. The sense of hierarchy he'd relied on for years had slipped, and the room subtly shifted around that fact. Bennett moved past him, adjusting an infusion line with steady hands. Cole stepped aside, a reluctant concession, as the team quietly began to follow her lead. No words were exchanged. But the escalation had a price. The lieutenant's pride, his perceived control, and the careful equilibrium of the ICU, all stretched taut in a room full of witnesses. The audience in the room, the corpsmen, the medics, the junior officers, felt it. And for the first time that day, authority didn't belong entirely to the man in camouflage. The ICU was quieter now, but not in a comfortable way. The hum of monitors and ventilators was constant, yet every movement seemed amplified. Cole stood near the entrance, arms folded, eyes scanning. But something about the way the corpsmen moved around him was different. Subtle, almost imperceptible. Heads tilted slightly when Bennett gave instructions. Fingers lingered over knobs and buttons as if waiting for her confirmation. Cole noticed it, but dismissed it at first. They were just being cautious, he told himself. Professionalism, discipline, protocol. Nothing more. Bennett moved along the line of beds, checking vitals with deliberate calm. She spoke in measured tones, every word precise. Adjust PEEP to 20. Confirm ABG in 5 minutes. Notify me if MAP drops below 60. The team followed, nodding almost imperceptibly. They didn't look to Cole for confirmation anymore, but he caught their glances. Not defiance, not disrespect, something quieter. Almost recognition. Cole's jaw tightened. He shifted weight from one boot to the other, a subtle sign of unease he barely acknowledged. Normally, he would feel authority in the room. It would pulse around him like static electricity. Now, the current seemed drawn elsewhere. One of the junior SEALs approached him. Sir, do you want me to? No. Stand by, Cole said sharply. But the hesitation in the man's eyes lingered longer than usual. The SEAL's gaze flicked toward Bennett for guidance, then back. It was fleeting, but noticeable. Cole cleared his throat and tried to refocus. Everyone, maintain positions. Let's stay sharp. Another corpsman, a woman with a sharp ponytail, whispered something to a colleague. Cole didn't catch the words, but the quick glance she shot at Bennett spoke volumes. Subtle. Almost accidental. He caught it. His stomach knotted. He moved closer to the bedside monitor, pretending to review charts. Pressure's holding, he said aloud. Good. Keep it steady. His tone was clipped. He scanned the room, trying to find a sign of loyalty. The subtle tension persisted. Bennett paused by a ventilator and adjusted a dial, then stepped back. Check tidal volume. Ensure alarm limits match updated settings. The corpsman obeyed instantly. Without hesitation. Without question. Cole watched, his chest tight. Something about the room's dynamic had shifted without words. He tried to speak to Bennett, casually, lightly. You've been efficient today. A compliment meant to reassert normalcy. She didn't look up, just acknowledged with a small nod. No smile. No gratitude. Professional. Neutral. But even that minimal gesture seemed controlled. Intentional. The tension between them was subtle now, a taut thread under every sound. Footsteps on tile. The slight clink of metal carts. A cough from behind a curtain. Cole felt his usual instinct to dominate, to assert, to control, but the room subtly resisted. Not through open defiance, but through careful, measured restraint. He stepped closer to Bennett again, lowering his voice. You're good at this. A statement, not a question. She didn't respond. Her hands moved with the same deliberate precision as before. He glanced at the SEALs behind him. One adjusted his belt, one shifted weight. Neither looked directly at Cole. Their glances were drawn repeatedly to Bennett. Small, fleeting, almost invisible. Cole's pulse quickened. He hated uncertainty, hated feeling the current slip through his fingers. Bennett moved toward another patient, a subtle authority in her posture. Cole's eyes followed her. The way she moved, the quiet confidence, the deliberate decisions felt familiar. Like she belonged somewhere he couldn't yet place. He shook his head subtly. Impossible. A pager went off. Cole's hand twitched toward it, but one of the corpsmen beat him to silence it. He caught the man's eye. The SEAL blinked, then looked away. Again, just for a moment, almost as if acknowledging something he wasn't supposed to. Cole felt a creeping unease settle in his chest. Every glance toward Bennett, every motion by the team, every hushed nod, whispered that something in this room was not as it seemed. He tightened his jaw and inhaled slowly. He tried to reclaim the space verbally. Let's keep focus. Follow my instructions. His words rang louder than necessary. Some nodded, but the subtle rhythm of obedience still shifted toward Bennett. Bennett adjusted in 4 bag, then paused. She glanced at Cole, not challenging, not mocking, but assessing. Just a quick, measured look. It lingered in the room longer than any words could. Cole's throat tightened. He realized he was searching for reassurance, for dominance, for control, and the room wasn't offering it. Not yet. Not openly. The unease grew with every small action. Korsman waiting for Bennett's nod before acting. Seals shifting subtly in her direction. Silence where tension used to be noise. And through it all, Bennett worked quietly, efficiently, without ego. The air in the ICU was charged, and Cole felt it like static under his skin. Something was coming. Something he couldn't yet name. He tried to focus on the patient monitors. Heart rates, oxygen saturation, ABG values. Numbers. Facts. Safe territory. But the numbers alone couldn't erase the sense that something was off. The room had shifted imperceptibly, almost invisibly, and Cole felt it in every bootstep, every glance, every silence. He could feel the eyes of the team on him now, but not in allegiance. Observation. Assessment. Waiting. And for the first time that day, he realized that the ICU was no longer entirely his domain. Something unseen was moving, subtle, patient, deliberate. And Cole, despite every instinct honed on battlefields, realized he was on the outside of it, watching, unsure. Bennett glanced toward him again. Just a flicker of acknowledgement. No defiance. No challenge. But enough. Enough to unsettle him completely. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a steady white noise against the occasional beeps from the monitors. Cole leaned against a counter, arms crossed, trying to regain his composure. He watched Bennett move through the ICU with the same precision and calm he had observed since morning. But something about the way she handled the situation gnawed at him, like a current just beneath the surface, invisible but undeniable. A ventilator alarm tripped quietly in the corner. Bennett moved instantly, fingers flicking over the controls as she muttered instructions to a corpsman. The problem resolved before anyone else had even registered it. Cole stepped closer, expecting to reassert his authority, but she didn't pause. She didn't look up. Her hands moved with fluid certainty, as if the situation had already been anticipated. "Check the infusion pump," Cole said under his breath, testing the waters. Bennett glanced at him, then at the pump, then back to the patient. "Already done, sir," she replied softly. No hesitation. No explanation. The words unsettled him more than confrontation ever had. How could she know? How could she be ahead of him at every step, without any visible experience in combat zones? He walked past her, ostensibly to review charts. But when he returned, she was adjusting a line that, according to protocol, shouldn't even have needed attention yet. He froze. He wanted to ask how she knew, but stopped himself. The room held its breath with him. Korsman and Seals alike were watching her, silent, waiting. Cole's jaw tightened. Something about the movement of her hands, the subtle way she shifted a patient slightly to optimize ventilation, and the almost imperceptible nods she gave the team, made him pause. It was as if she were choreographing them silently, every gesture precise, every instruction unspoken but understood. A junior officer approached Cole hesitantly. "Sir, should we double-check her adjustments?" Cole's instinct screamed, assert authority. But something in the way the officer glanced at Bennett, the quiet trust in those fleeting seconds, stopped him. He only shook his head, and the officer stepped back, glancing at Bennett again. Bennett moved to another patient, checking vitals without prompting. The monitors flickered under her hands, numbers stabilized almost instantly. Cole felt the air shift around him. Not defiance. Not rebellion. But competence so absolute that hesitation in anyone else felt exposed. A corpsman shifted nervously. She seems confident," he whispered to another. Cole caught the words. Confidence. That didn't explain it. It wasn't just confidence. The room subtly bent around her. Decisions were made in anticipation, reactions so precise it was uncanny. A near-miss situation, a patient's oxygen line kinked slightly, was corrected by Bennett before anyone could even reach it. She didn't glance at him for confirmation. She didn't ask. She simply acted. Cole felt a tight knot in his chest. The lieutenant who had faced ambushes, explosions, and firefights found himself unnerved by a nurse in scrubs. Something wasn't adding up. He stepped closer as she adjusted the suction line on a ventilator. You knew to do that." His tone was sharper than intended. Bennett didn't answer immediately. She simply nodded once, almost imperceptibly. Her hands moved on, checking tubing and monitoring numbers as if reading data invisible to him. Cole's mind raced. Another alarm flickered. Bennett reacted instantly, issuing concise, quiet instructions. The situation resolved within seconds. The junior SEALs glanced at Cole, then at Bennett, hesitation in their eyes. Cole had to swallow. For the first time, authority in the room felt fragile. He stepped back, pretending to review patient charts. His pulse was faster than it should have been. The realization crept in slowly. Bennett wasn't just competent. She seemed trained. Trained in ways he couldn't place, in ways that made the team's deference almost instinctual. A monitor beeped softly, and she moved to silence it, almost before it sounded. Cole watched her fingers, precise and deliberate, the ease with which she moved from one critical adjustment to another. The near misses, the moments when something could have gone wrong but didn't, stacked in his mind. Each one suggested foresight, experience, skills beyond the ordinary. Cole felt a flicker of unease. Could he have misjudged her completely? Could this young nurse, seemingly fresh, be more than she appeared? He swallowed, trying to regain the familiar grip of authority. But every glance, every subtle movement in the room, reminded him that Bennett had a presence he hadn't accounted for. Something in her composure, her silent command, hinted at hidden layers. And though no one said it, and no one could have known it for sure, the audience in the room, the corpsmen, the junior SEALs, even Cole himself, felt it. The underestimated character might not be ordinary. Cole's instincts screamed. He knew she wasn't bluffing. She wasn't pretending. The near misses, the anticipations, the small corrections, it was all too exact, too calculated. He glanced around. Everyone was watching her now, quietly, deferentially, waiting. Even the most disciplined SEALs held back. Cole felt the subtle shift, the first real evidence that the balance of power in the room had begun to tilt. He exhaled slowly, trying to shake the unease. But he couldn't. Not yet. The midpoint had arrived. The audience, the room itself, sensed it too. Something hidden, something capable, something beyond expectations was quietly asserting itself. Cole returned to the counter, pretending to review charts, pretending to analyze numbers. But his eyes kept flicking toward Bennett. And the thought lingered, unspoken and unacknowledged. She was not what she seemed. Every near miss, every instinctive correction, every fleeting nod from the team was a breadcrumb leading toward a truth he wasn't ready to confront. And the tension, once subtle, had grown into a low hum, vibrating through the ICU walls, waiting for the inevitable reveal. The room had grown still. Too still. Monitors hummed, ventilators hissed, but the tension hung thick, like the air before a storm. Cole leaned against the counter, chest tight, pulse elevated. He had been watching Bennett for hours, each movement, each adjustment, each subtle assertion of authority chipping away at his certainty. And then it happened. A sudden alarm shrieked from Ramirez's monitor, a sharp, irregular beep. The oxygen saturation plummeted. Cole lunged forward instinctively, hand on the patient's chest line, ready to act. But Bennett was faster. "Stop," she barked once, her voice crisp, commanding. Every syllable cut through the room like a whip. The SEALs froze mid-step, corpsmen halted their motions. Cole hesitated, just a fraction too long. She had already unclipped the malfunctioning line, replaced it with a secondary, calibrated tube, and recalibrated the ventilator settings in one fluid motion. The monitors stabilized instantly. Cole's eyes widened. "How?" Bennett turned slowly, hands steady. Her gaze met his, unwavering, but calm. Then she spoke, deliberately, without drama. "Lieutenant Cole," she said, voice measured. "You've been watching me work. I assume you've noticed a pattern." Cole swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. He had seen rapid response medics. He had led men under fire. But nothing, not training, not experience, had prepared him for the precision, the foresight, the quiet command radiating from Bennett. "Rank," she continued, tilting her head slightly, "isn't always visible on your collar. Authority isn't always announced." And sometimes she paused, Letting the weight settle, you only learn it by watching it in action. Her hand flicked to the insignia barely visible under her scrubs. Gold oak leaves. Command Nurse, United States Navy. Equivalent to a senior officer. Cole's chest tightened. His mind raced. That explained everything, the anticipation, the near misses, the instinctive control over the room. Every subtle deference from the team, every second of hesitation, had been acknowledgement of her true rank. The reaction was instantaneous. The corpsmen straightened, almost in unison. The SEALs' jaws clenched, but the tension in their shoulders shifted. Where there had been doubt, now there was recognition. Respect. Immediate, silent, undeniable. Cole stepped back, boots scraping the tiles slightly, awareness settling heavily on his shoulders. He had underestimated her completely, and now it was undeniable to everyone in the room. Bennett moved from the patient, adjusting her stance, checking the monitors with calm authority. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't demand attention. It came naturally, silently, like gravity asserting itself. The junior officer who had questioned her earlier swallowed, finally understanding why his hesitation had been warranted. "Understood, ma'am," he said softly. The corpsman nodded quickly, some snapping slight salutes. The SEALs relaxed their tension, though their eyes remained sharp, assessing, recalibrating the chain of command. Cole finally found his voice, low but measured. "Command Nurse Bennett," he said, the weight of respect now evident. "I acknowledge your authority." Bennett nodded once. No triumph, no ego. Just the professional acknowledgement of her role. "Focus on the patient," she replied. "That's what matters." And, just like that, the room shifted. Every action, every glance, every step now aligned with her direction. It was subtle at first. The corpsmen moved with renewed precision. The SEALs adjusted quietly to her instructions, but the change was complete. Authority, once contested, was now clearly hers. Cole's mind raced, trying to reconcile his previous assumptions with the reality before him. He had come in confident, commanding. He had expected deference based on his rank, his battlefield experience, his presence. Yet, in a single moment, all that had been recalibrated by someone he had dismissed as inexperienced. He stepped toward the monitor again, slower this time, more deliberate. He followed her lead, assisting without hesitation, trusting her decisions implicitly. Every motion, every adjustment he had previously sought to dominate, now passed through her guidance. The ICU team reacted instantly. Corpsmen executed tasks without waiting for permission. SEALs adjusted positions quietly, following her subtle cues. Even the room itself seemed to bend around her command, the previously imperceptible current of authority now clearly flowing outward from her. Bennett's gaze swept the room once more. Calm, controlled, professional. No satisfaction. No ego. Just action, focus, and quiet authority. Cole finally allowed himself a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He nodded slightly. Small, almost imperceptible, but deliberate. Recognition. Respect. Understanding that authority wasn't just about rank on a collar or boots on the floor, it was earned, demonstrated, and, in this case, hidden in plain sight. The monitors stabilized, alarms silenced. The ICU returned to its steady rhythm. The tension that had gripped the room hours ago dissipated, leaving a quiet hum of efficiency. Everyone moved with purpose now, synchronized without hesitation. The near misses that had previously gnawed at the team were gone. The subtle unease, the invisible current of doubt, vanished. Cole stepped back entirely, letting Bennett guide the room. The weight of his misjudgment sat heavy, but it was tempered by clarity. He understood, finally, that he had underestimated someone extraordinary. Bennett adjusted the last line, checked the final vitals, and finally turned to Cole. Her expression neutral, calm, but her presence undeniable. "Sir," she said simply. "Focus on the patient next. That's the priority." Cole nodded, voice steady, carrying new respect. "Understood." "Yes, ma'am." The shift was complete. Authority had been reversed. The room had witnessed it. The subtle power of rank, hidden capability, and calm precision now dominated, and there was no question left. No one moved out of line. No one hesitated. No one doubted again. And for Cole, the realization settled fully. Underestimating her had been a mistake he would never repeat. The ICU continued its hum, the machine steady, the air charged not with tension, but with the quiet acknowledgement of true command. Bennett moved among the team with deliberate grace, correcting, adjusting, directing without fanfare. Her authority was no longer hidden. And in that moment, the room understood it completely, irreversibly. Cole watched. Silent. Respectful. Humbled. The Navy SEAL who had mocked her earlier now followed every step she took, fully aware that the balance of power had shifted in a single, unforgettable moment. The audience, every witness in the room, felt it too. The underestimated nurse was not ordinary. She was command. She was authority. She was the quiet force that had reshaped everything in seconds. And the echo of that realization lingered long after the immediate crisis passed. The ICU had returned to its usual rhythm, but the air felt different. Monitors hummed steadily. Ventilators hissed with consistent cadence. Corpsmen moved efficiently, quietly, but their eyes occasionally flicked toward Bennett. Not in doubt, not in challenge, more like acknowledgement. Respect. Recognition. Cole sat against the counter, arms resting on his knees, staring at the floor. The adrenaline that had driven him all morning had ebbed, replaced by a heavier, quieter weight, awareness. He had misjudged Bennett. Misjudged the subtle authority she carried. Misjudged what it meant to follow when someone else, hidden in plain sight, knew better. The team moved around him with new rhythm. Every corpsman executed orders without hesitation. Every SEAL followed subtle cues she gave. The near misses from earlier had vanished, replaced by smooth efficiency. No one celebrated. No one commented aloud. Professionalism was the language here, not ego or spectacle. But the shift in dynamics was unmistakable. Cole exhaled slowly, the tension leaving his shoulders in small increments. He felt the sting of pride, not humiliation, exactly, but a quiet, reflective awareness. Authority wasn't about boots on the floor or the weight of a name. It was about competence, foresight, and the ability to make decisions that mattered when the stakes were highest. Bennett adjusted an infusion line with calm precision, checking the monitors one last time. Then she paused, surveying the team. Her eyes briefly met Cole's. No triumph. No mockery. Just a professional acknowledgement that the crisis had passed and the work continued. The lieutenant rose, moving to assist with documentation. His hands were steady now, but there was a new humility in his posture. He asked questions quietly, listened carefully, followed her guidance without the usual instinct to override or assert dominance. The shift had altered more than his perception. It had changed the way he approached the room, the team, and even the patients. A corpsman approached Cole hesitantly. "Lieutenant, she really knew what she was doing." Cole nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "She did." The words hung in the air. Not celebratory. Not performative. Just honest recognition. Throughout the room, quiet conversations resumed. Orders were given and executed efficiently. Team members moved seamlessly from one patient to another. The tension that had built for hours had dissipated. Yet, the memory of the morning's conflict lingered. Subtle, but present. A reminder of assumptions made and lessons learned. Cole caught himself watching Bennett again. Her calm focus, her precise movements, the quiet authority that radiated from her without announcement, it was disarming. He realized that he would carry this awareness with him for weeks, perhaps months. In future missions, in future confrontations, he would approach situations with a new perspective, measurability, respect competence, never assume based on appearances alone. A junior SEAL approached Bennett quietly. "Command nurse, thank you. The team, we've learned a lot today." She nodded once, briefly, without fanfare. No ego. No dramatics. Just acknowledgement and the subtle reinforcement of leadership earned through action, not assertion. Cole exhaled again, heavier this time. He had felt the fragile edge of authority shift and now understood how easily assumptions could mislead. He felt responsibility, not for being humiliated, but for allowing his misjudgment to interfere, even briefly, with patient care. That thought alone kept him grounded, reminding him that consequences were professional, not personal. Later, the ICU commander passed through, nodding toward Bennett. "Excellent handling of critical care today," he said softly. Team responded well. The patient stabilized. Bennett replied in her usual measured tone. "Thank you, sir. Teamwork made it possible." Cole listened, absorbing both the praise and the underlying lesson. Recognition in the military, he reflected, often came quietly. Impact was measured in lives saved, not applause. As the shift ended, the team began clearing the room, preparing for the next rotation. Cole packed up his gear, movements deliberate, introspective. He exchanged a brief nod with Bennett, mutual understanding passing silently between them. No words were necessary. Respect had been established. Authority had been recognized. And, most importantly, the professional environment had been restored with clarity. Alone for a moment, Cole exhaled, letting the weight of the morning settle. Pride had given way to reflection. Ego had been tempered by confidence. Lessons had been learned without spectacle, without exaggerated drama. Outside the ICU, he paused by the doorway, glancing back at Bennett as she continued her work. The quiet authority she embodied lingered in his mind. Not as a threat, not as a challenge, but as a standard. A reminder that leadership could be subtle, unannounced, and still absolute. Cole straightened, squared his shoulders, and moved on. The aftermath of the morning's events wasn't measured in applause or vindication. It was measured in awareness, in respect earned, in lives protected. The ICU remained calm, the monitors steady, the team moving efficiently under her guidance. No one celebrated the power reversal. No one spoke of humiliation. Only the quiet, undeniable understanding of professional consequences and the recognition that underestimating someone capable could have very real stakes. And for Cole, that quiet lesson, absorbed without spectacle, reinforced through observation and action, would remain long after the shift ended. Professional respect had been recalibrated. Authority had been restored. And the room, once tense with uncertainty, moved forward with clarity, competence, and unwavering focus on the mission at hand. The ICU was quiet now, the tension that had gripped it for hours slowly dissolving into the regular hum of monitors and the rhythmic hiss of ventilators. The events of the morning lingered in the air like a barely perceptible echo, subtle but undeniable. Cole moved through the room with a new awareness, each step measured, each action tempered by reflection. He understood, finally, that authority wasn't a force one could claim with boots or rank alone. It was demonstrated, earned, and sometimes quietly hidden until the right moment revealed it. He thought back to the first confrontation, the sharp words, the challenge of pride, the instinct to dominate. Every detail replayed in his mind with uncomfortable clarity. He had entered the ICU confident, accustomed to the unquestioned weight of his rank. His experience in the field had taught him to assess, to act, to command. Yet, in the sterile corridors of this military hospital, all of that confidence had been met with resistance, not blatant, but subtle, disciplined, and relentless. He realized how easily assumptions could blind even the most experienced eyes. Watching Bennett move through the room that morning had been like observing a carefully choreographed dance. Every gesture precise, every instruction calculated, every adjustment anticipatory. The corpsman responded instantly to her cues. The SEALs followed her silently, deferential, even though the outward markers of rank said they should follow him. The pattern had been clear, though he hadn't recognized it immediately. She had been in control all along. Not by intimidation, not by proclamation, but by competence and measured authority. Cole found himself reflecting not just on the immediate events, but on the broader lessons they implied. Respect in a military environment was often assumed as a default based on visible rank, but Bennett had shown him that true authority was earned in action. Leadership was not the loudest voice in the room, it was the one whose decisions held consequence and whose presence inspired confidence. It was quiet, restrained, and deliberate. He remembered the moment the patient's oxygen saturation plummeted. The near miss had been a test, though not intentional, and Bennett's response had been instantaneous. She acted before anyone else could react, her hands steady, her commands concise. The room had shifted subtly in those seconds, a silent acknowledgement from everyone present that the person with real authority had been underestimated. He had felt it then, the slight tremor in the air, the quiet current of power flowing from her, unseen but palpable. For Cole, the aftermath was humbling. He had always measured authority in experience, in rank, in history written on uniforms and medals. Yet in this room, those measures had been secondary to something far more essential: competence, foresight, and the unspoken confidence to act decisively when it mattered most. He realized that underestimating someone, especially in an environment where stakes were measured in lives, was a mistake he could never afford to repeat. The team's behavior after the morning's events reinforced the lesson further. Corpsmen executed tasks without hesitation. SEALs shifted instinctively in response to Bennett's subtle cues. The hierarchy had been recalibrated, not through confrontation, but through observation. Cole watched, silent, aware that he was learning a lesson he would carry beyond this room, beyond this hospital, and into every mission, every command, every interaction where authority mattered. He reflected on Bennett herself. She had never raised her voice unnecessarily. She had never sought recognition or validation. Her authority had been quiet, almost invisible until circumstances demanded it. That was the mark of true command, not the demand of obedience, but the subtle alignment of action and awareness, the capacity to move a room without words, the ability to act decisively when consequences were immediate. Cole thought about his own reactions: pride, instinct, the need to assert dominance. Each had been tested, challenged, and ultimately reshaped by the quiet force of her presence. He understood now that humility wasn't weakness, it was awareness. It was the recognition that leadership and authority could exist outside the visible markers he had relied on, that competence could be concealed, and that judgment required constant vigilance. The quiet moments in the aftermath spoke volumes. Bennett adjusted a line, checked a monitor, gave a brief nod to a corpsman, and moved on. No one clapped. No one commented. Yet the authority she embodied radiated through every action. The room moved with her, seamlessly, professionally, efficiently. Cole felt it in every glance, every step, every small compliance of the team. Authority respected, leadership acknowledged, humility preserved. In the days that followed, Cole reflected repeatedly on the experience. Each time he entered a new environment, he thought of the quiet authority Bennett had demonstrated. He carried it with him as a standard to measure not just others, but himself. He began to see that respect was not given lightly, that authority could not be assumed, and that competence, when combined with restraint, spoke louder than any proclamation of rank. He understood that the morning's events had changed more than the immediate hierarchy of the ICU. They had shifted his perspective, deepened his awareness, and tempered his instincts. The lessons of humility, careful observation, and recognition of true authority were subtle, yet profound. They were lessons in leadership that he would carry silently, applying them in ways both visible and unseen. Bennett herself remained a model of quiet professionalism. She never sought recognition beyond what was necessary. She acted decisively, measuredly, and with the calm assurance of someone whose experience and competence demanded acknowledgement. Cole realized that real authority did not need to be flaunted. It was proven through action, through results, and through the silent acknowledgement of those who witnessed it. He considered the team, the corpsmen and SEALs who had initially responded to him with instinctive allegiance. Their alignment had shifted, not out of fear or drama, but through observation of true confidence. The lesson was clear: authority could be subtle, invisible even, and still command loyalty, respect, and trust. Cole's own professional conduct had been reshaped. He recognized that assumptions based on visible rank, on experience alone, could be misleading. He realized that the greatest leaders were those who could act decisively without demanding acknowledgement, who could earn respect quietly, and who could inspire confidence through competence rather than assertion. As the shift ended, Cole took a final glance at Bennett. She was checking the last patient of the evening, calm, precise, unwavering. He felt a quiet respect, deep and unspoken. No words were needed. The lesson had been delivered, indelibly, through observation and consequence, through action and restraint. The lights dimmed slightly as the evening approached. The ICU retained its steady rhythm, machines humming, teams moving efficiently. Cole exhaled, feeling the weight of what he had learned, and the quiet clarity of what it meant to respect authority earned, not assumed. The day had revealed that humility was not defeat, that true authority did not require proclamation, and that confidence, even when hidden, could shift the balance of power irrevocably. He carried the memory of the morning's events as both a lesson and a benchmark, a reminder that the quietest presence could wield the most profound influence. And as he stepped out into the hallway, boots echoing softly against tile, he realized the truth he would not soon forget. Respect is earned in silence, recognized in action, and never underestimated.